In the bustling heart of New York City, where the neon lights of Times Square clash with the shadows of forgotten alleys, a young woman named Amelia huddled against a biting winter wind. She was just 22, her once vibrant dreams shattered by a string of misfortunes, parents lost in a tragic accident, savings drained by medical bills, and a job market that turned its back on her. Homeless for over a year, she survived on the kindness of strangers, scavenging for scraps and warming herself by steam grates. But Amelia had something rare, an unyielding spark of empathy in a world that had grown cold. Little did she know, one fateful evening, that spark would ignite a chain of events transforming her life forever. It started on a stormy Tuesday night in December. Rain poured down like a relentless judgment, turning the streets into rivers of forgotten hopes. Amelia had found temporary shelter under the awning of a closed coffee shop, her thin jacket soaked through, clutching a tattered backpack that held her entire world, a faded photo of her family, a half-eaten apple, and a notebook filled with sketches of imaginary escapes. Across the street, she noticed a man stumbling in the downpour. He was elderly, dressed in a rumpled suit that spoke of better days, his silver hair plastered to his forehead. He clutched his chest, gasping, as if the storm itself was suffocating him. Most passers-by hurried on, umbrellas shielding their indifference. But Amelia couldn't look away. Her heart, battered yet unbroken, compelled her to act. She dashed into the rain, her sneakers splashing through puddles, and reached the man just as he collapsed against a lamppost. "Sir, are you okay?" she shouted over the thunder, her voice steady despite the chill seeping into her bones. He looked up, eyes wide with pain, and whispered, "Help? My heart. Pills in my pocket." Without hesitation, Amelia rummaged through his coat, finding a small bottle of nitroglycerin tablets. She placed one under his tongue as he'd faintly instructed, then flagged down a taxi with frantic waves. "Hospital now," she urged the driver, bundling the stranger inside. As they sped through the slick streets, she held his hand, murmuring words of comfort. "You're going to be fine. Just breathe. Tell me about yourself. What's your name?" "Victor." "Victor Hale." He rasped, his grip tightening. In those tense minutes, as sirens wailed in the distance, Victor shared fragments of his life. He was a reclusive inventor, a genius who'd patented groundbreaking tech in renewable energy decades ago, amassing a fortune but losing his family to isolation. Now, at 78, he wandered the city alone, haunted by regrets. "No one stops anymore," he murmured. "Why did you?" Amelia shrugged, water dripping from her hair. "Because everyone deserves a chance. Good deeds aren't about expecting something back. They're about being human." At the hospital, doctors rushed Victor into emergency care, confirming a severe heart attack averted by her quick thinking. Amelia waited in the lobby, shivering in her wet clothes, until a nurse approached. "He's stable, thanks to you. He wants to see you." In the sterile room, Victor lay pale but alert, machines beeping softly. "You saved my life, young lady," he said, his voice stronger. "What's your name, and how can I repay you?" "Amelia," she replied softly, "and you don't owe me anything. Just get better." But Victor wasn't one to forget a debt. As days turned to weeks, he recovered, and their unlikely friendship blossomed. He invited her to his modest brownstone, modest on the outside, but inside, a labyrinth of gadgets, blueprints, and hidden wealth. Victor had billions tucked away in trusts and investments, but more importantly, he saw in Amelia a reflection of his younger self. Innovative, resilient, kind. He began mentoring her, teaching her about engineering, business, and the power of ideas. Amelia, with her natural talent for design evident in her sketches, absorbed it all like a sponge. One evening, over tea in his workshop, she shared an idea she'd doodled, a portable solar device that could purify water for homeless shelters. Victor's eyes lit up. "That's brilliant. Let's build it." Together, they prototyped it, Victor funding the materials and connections. Word spread through his network, and soon investors clamored. The device, dubbed Amelia's Light, patented under both their names, revolutionized aid efforts worldwide. Sales skyrocketed, royalties poured in, and Amelia found herself at the helm of a startup valued at millions. But as success mounted, shadows emerged. Jealous rivals questioned her sudden rise. whispering that she must have manipulated the old man. Victor's estranged nephew, sensing an inheritance slip away, hired investigators to dig into her past. Amelia faced smear campaigns, legal threats, and the weight of imposter syndrome. Yet, through it all, her good deeds' ripple effect grew, donating profits to shelters, inspiring others to acts of kindness. One crisp morning, as Amelia stood on the balcony of her new apartment overlooking Central Park, Victor called with urgent news. "We have a problem," he said, his voice tense. "My nephew's found something, an old document that could unravel everything we've built." Amelia's heart raced as she hurried to his home, unaware that this revelation would test the true value of her compassion and lead to an even greater transformation. Upon arriving, Victor handed her a yellowed envelope, his hands trembling. Inside was a letter from years ago, revealing a secret connection between their families that neither had known, a twist of fate that explained why their paths crossed that rainy night. As she read the words, her world shifted once more. Hinting at a legacy far beyond wealth, Amelia's fingers trembled as she unfolded the brittle paper. The ink faded, but the words unmistakable. It was a letter dated 30 years earlier, written in a woman's elegant script, her mother's, addressed to Victor Hale. It spoke of a profound gratitude for his anonymous funding of an experimental treatment that had saved her life during a rare illness when she was pregnant with Amelia. "Without your generosity to the foundation," it read, "my daughter would never have been born. I wish I could thank you in person, but you've chosen to remain hidden. One day, I hope the universe repays your kindness in ways you never imagined." Victor watched her face, tears welling in his own eyes. "I set up that charity after losing my wife and child," he explained softly. "I poured money into helping strangers with medical crises, never expecting to meet any of them. Your mother, she was one of the first. I remembered her name when you told me yours that night in the taxi, but I didn't connect it until my lawyer dug up old records during this mess with my nephew." The revelation hit Amelia like a warm wave crashing over years of cold isolation. All this time, her act of kindness hadn't been random. It was a full-circle repayment, a cosmic echo of Victor's own good deed from decades ago. But the joy was short-lived. Victor's nephew, Reginald, a slick corporate raider in his 50s, had discovered the letter too, twisting it into ammunition. He claimed Victor was senile, that Amelia had somehow orchestrated the chance meeting, perhaps even researched his routines to stage the rescue and ingratiate herself. Reginald filed for conservatorship, demanding control over Victor's assets, accusing Amelia of undue influence. The media frenzy exploded. Tabloids dubbed her the Cinderella con artist, splashing photos of her former homeless self next to glamorous shots from recent charity galas. Investors wavered. Stock in her company dipped, and Amelia's world, so recently built on hope, teetered on collapse. She sat in Victor's study late into the night, poring over legal documents, her newfound wealth feeling like a fragile illusion. "We fight this," Victor declared, his health remarkably steady by purpose. He hired the best attorneys, but more importantly, he urged Amelia to lean into her strength, her authenticity. "Tell your story," he said. "The real one. People will see the truth." Amelia hesitated. Opening up meant exposing her vulnerabilities. The nights on the streets, the desperation, the small thefts of food she committed out of survival and still carried shame for. But she agreed. She started with a simple social media post, sharing the letter with permissions and her side of the rainy night. Then came interviews, raw, unfiltered conversations where she cried recounting her parents' death, laughed remembering Victor's quirky inventions, and passionately defended the purity of their bond. The tide began to turn. Supporters flooded in, sharing their own stories of kindness repaid unexpectedly. Hashtags like #GoodDeedCircle and #Amelia'sLight trended worldwide. Donations to shelters surged in her name, and the company's product waitlist grew longer than ever. Reginald's claims started to crumble under scrutiny. Investigators found no evidence of manipulation, only serendipity. Yet Reginald wasn't done. In a desperate bid, he unearthed another secret. Victor's original patents had a clause buried in fine print from his early days, a partnership agreement with a long-forgotten college friend who had vanished overseas. If that friend or his heirs surfaced, they could claim a significant share of the fortune that funded everything. including Alera's rise. Reginald anonymously tipped off tabloids, hinting at an impending lawsuit that could bankrupt them both. Alera flew to Victor's side as rumors swirled. "Who is this person?" she asked, scanning old yearbooks Victor pulled from dusty shelves. The name was Elias Thorne, a brilliant mind who'd co-developed the core renewable tech, but left for humanitarian work in remote villages, cutting ties with the modern world. No one had heard from him in years. "We have to find him," Alera said determinedly. "If he's out there, he deserves his share, and the truth could silence Reginald once and for all." Victor nodded, though worry etched his features. With her resources, Alera assembled a team, private investigators, journalists with global contacts, even reaching out to aid organizations in developing countries. Weeks blurred into a global search, leads trickling in from Africa to Southeast Asia. One promising tip came from a remote clinic in rural India, where an elderly doctor matched Elias's description, living simply, treating villagers with solar-powered tools reminiscent of their old designs. Alera booked the first flight, Victor insisting on coming despite his age. "This is my past to face," he said. As their plane soared over oceans, Alera gazed out the window, reflecting on how far she'd come, from scavenging for survival to chasing redemption across the world. But doubts crept in. What if Elias resented Victor for claiming full credit all those years? What if he demanded everything, leaving her back at square one? They landed in Mumbai, then endured a bumpy jeep ride into the countryside, dust clouds trailing behind. The village was a cluster of humble homes powered by makeshift solar panels. Crude but effective, clearly born of genius. Children played in the streets, waving curiously at the strangers. At the clinic, a weathered man with kind eyes and a white beard looked up from tending a patient's wound. "Victor," he whispered, recognition dawning. Tears flowed as the old friends embraced, decades melting away in an instant. Elias had never harbored bitterness. He'd chosen a life of direct impact over fame or fortune, inspired by their invention to help the forgotten. Over chai in a simple hut, stories poured out. Elias had no interest in claiming wealth. He'd sign away rights willingly back then, content with his path. But he did have a request. Partner with him to scale Alera's light, variants tailored for off-grid communities worldwide. Reginald's threat evaporated. Elias provided affidavits confirming the past, dismantling the lawsuit before it fully materialized. Back in New York, victory tasted sweeter than any riches. The company boomed, expanding into global humanitarian efforts, Alera at the forefront as CEO. She established foundations in her parents' and Victor's names, ensuring no one faced the hardships she once did. Victor, healthier than ever, became her steadfast advisor and surrogate grandfather. But as celebrations peaked, a grand gala announcing billions in pledges, Alera received an anonymous package. Inside was a single photograph, her on that rainy night, helping Victor, taken from afar. On the back, scrawled words, "Good deeds always have watchers. Your circle isn't complete yet." Her pulse quickened. Who sent it? A fan? A threat? Or perhaps another thread in the intricate web of kindness weaving through her life? As she stared at the image, a new email pinged on her phone, from an unknown sender claiming to be someone she'd helped unknowingly during her homeless days. Now in a position to change everything again, the message read, "Remember the boy you gave your last apple to in the park? It's time we talked." Alera's breath caught, memories flooding back of that small act, one she'd long forgotten amid grander events. Little did she know, this overlooked gesture was about to unveil alliances, betrayals, and opportunities that would propel her influence into realms she never dreamed possible, touching lives across continents in ways that redefined what it truly meant to be repaid for goodness. Alera stared at the email on her screen, the words blurring as a flood of memories rushed back. That day in Central Park, over 3 years ago, when winter's grip had been unrelenting and her stomach ached from days of scant meals. She found a bruised apple in a dumpster, her only find that morning, and sat on a bench, savoring each bite to make it last. A boy, no older than 12, had approached, his eyes hollow with the same hunger she knew too well. Ragged clothes, dirt-streaked face, shivering without a coat. Without a second thought, She'd handed him the half-eaten apple. "Here, kid, you need it more than I do today." He'd mumbled thanks and vanished into the crowd. She'd forgotten it almost immediately. Just another small act in a sea of survival. Now, this message from someone claiming to be that boy, grown into a man named Alexander Reed, promised a conversation that could change everything. Intrigued and cautious, Ilara arranged to meet at a quiet cafe in Brooklyn, the one she once left behind during her darkest nights. When he arrived, tall and poised in a tailored suit, his warm smile erased any doubt. "You won't remember me," he began, "but I never forgot you. That apple wasn't just food, it was hope. It kept me going that week until I found help." Alexander's story unfolded like a mirror of her own, yet inverted. Orphaned young, bounced through foster homes. He'd run away at 15, living on New York streets until a chance encounter with a tech scout at a library computer lab. His knack for coding, honed in secret on public machines, landed him scholarships, mentors, and eventually the founding of a groundbreaking AI company specializing in predictive algorithms for social good, detecting at-risk youth before they fell through cracks. Now a billionaire in his own right, he'd built an empire on the belief that one act of kindness could redirect a life. "I searched for you for years," he confessed, sliding a folder across the table. "When your story hit the news, the homeless girl who saved a stranger and rose to millions, I knew it was you. The sketches you used to do on napkins, I remembered watching you once. And that apple, it was a turning point. The folder contained a proposal, a merger of their companies. His AI integrated with Ilara's renewable tech could create smart systems distributing aid globally, predicting crises, delivering purified water and energy to those in need before disaster struck. But more than business, Alexander offered partnership in every sense. "We've both been repaid kindness 1,000-fold," he said, his eyes locking with hers. "Imagine what we could do together, not just as collaborators, but as forces multiplying good in ways the world has never seen." Victor, ever the wise patriarch, met Alexander and gave his blessing with tears in his eyes. "The circle widens," he whispered. Elias joined via video from India, his gentle laugh echoing approval. Reginald, defeated and humbled by the overwhelming evidence of genuine connections, quietly withdrew his claims, even donating to their foundation in a bid for redemption. As months blurred into a whirlwind of innovation, Ilara and Alexander's bond deepened. Late nights in labs turned to shared dreams under starlit skies, their love blooming from shared scars and triumphant spirits. They married in a simple ceremony on that same Central Park bench, surrounded by Victor, Elias, and hundreds whose lives they touched. Former homeless, now thriving, villagers from distant lands flown in for the occasion. Ilara wore a dress woven with solar threads that glowed softly, symbolizing the light she carried through darkness. Their combined empire soared, valued in tens of billions, but wealth was merely a tool. They launched the Global Kindness Network, an initiative tracking acts of goodwill worldwide via anonymous apps, rewarding them with resources that created exponential impact. A child sharing lunch in a school cafeteria might trigger funding for an entire community's nutrition program. A stranger paying for coffee ahead could spark scholarships. The algorithm, refined by Alexander's genius and Ilara's empathy, ensured no good deed went unrewarded, weaving an invisible web of compassion across continents. Challenges arose, governments skeptical of such radical altruism, corporations fearing disruption to profit-driven models, even threats from those who profited from suffering. But Ilara, no longer a fragile girl under awnings, stood resilient. She addressed the United Nations, her voice steady and passionate. "We were all that homeless child once, or the elderly man collapsing alone. Kindness isn't charity. It's the currency of humanity. Invest in it and watch world transform." Victories mounted. Deserts bloomed with solar-purified oases. War-torn regions received aid preemptively, reducing conflicts born of scarcity. Children in slums coded apps that solved local problems, mentored remotely by Alexander's team. Victor lived to see his wildest dreams realized, passing peacefully at 85, surrounded by his chosen family. His last words to Ilara: "You completed my circle and started 1,000 more." Years later, Amelia and Alexander stood atop their foundation's headquarters, a towering structure powered entirely by renewable sources. Its walls etched with stories of kindness from around the globe. Their own children, two bright-eyed daughters with their mother's sketches and father's code, played in gardens where once concrete dominated. Billions have been lifted from poverty, not through handouts, but through empowered cycles of giving. Yet Amelia knew the truth. It all traced back to that rainy night, to a half-eaten apple, to forgotten letters and chance reunions. Good deeds, she often said in her viral talks watched by millions, aren't transactions, they're seeds. Plant one, and forests grow in ways you can't predict. On the anniversary of that fateful storm, Amelia returned to the spot where she'd saved Victor. Rain fell gently now, a soft reminder rather than torment. She placed a plaque there. In kindness, we find our true wealth. Let your light shine for strangers. You never know whose life you'll illuminate or how brightly it will return to you. As crowds gathered annually to share stories, inspired to pay forward unseen ripples, Amelia smiled, hand in Alexander's. From homeless girl to beacon of hope, her journey proved that one compassionate act could reshape destinies, not just for individuals, but for humanity itself. And in a world often shadowed by cynicism, their legacy endured as a magnificent testament. Goodness, when nurtured, becomes an unstoppable force, circling back eternally, lifting us all higher than we ever dared dream. The circles of kindness expanded endlessly, touching every corner of the earth, proving that in helping a stranger, we save ourselves and in time the world.